Okay, so I apologize with the last video. This is the Daf Yomi. We're in Avodah Zarah, Daf 39. In Daf 38, my video storage was full at the very end of that video, so there's literally a paragraph and a half to finish that Daf. So I'm gonna start this video with the last two paragraphs of Daf 38. So we have that. Okay. So this is 38, the last two paragraphs. The Mishnah teaches, in boiled and pickled vegetables of Gentiles whose usual manner of preparation involves adding wine and vinegar to them may not be consumed, but one may derive benefit from them. So Hizkiah says, they taught that this prohibition applies solely to consumption only where the usual manner of preparation involves adding wine and vinegar, though there's no information about how these particular vegetables were prepared. But where it is known for certain that these vegetables were prepared with wine or vinegar, it is prohibited even to derive benefit from them. The Gemara asks, in what way is this case different from fish stew, which the sages permitted one to derive benefit from? The Gemara answers, there, with regard to fish stew, wine is added merely to remove the stench of the fish and does not actually contribute any taste to it, whereas here, with regard to pickled vegetables, it is added to sweeten the taste. The Gemara cites a dissenting opinion. Rabbi Yochanan says, even where it is known that wine or vinegar was added to the vegetables, it is also permitted to derive benefit from them. So the Gemara asks, in what way is this case different from fish stew, according to the opinion of Rabbi Meir, who prohibited deriving benefit from the fish stew? So why does Rabbi Meir permit one to derive benefit from vegetables pickled in Gentiles' wine, but prohibit deriving benefit from fish stew that contains wine or vinegar? Now this is Daf 39. And the Gemara explains, there, the substance of the wine is recognizable component of the fish stew. Here, its substance is not recognizable component of the pickled vegetables. The Mishnah teaches, in minced tarit fish, in brine that does not have a kilbit fish floating in it, in chilak, are all prohibited. The Gemara asks, what is chilak? Rav Nachman bar Abba says that Rav says, this is sultanit, a type of small fish that is generally caught before its scales have developed. Or sultanit, okay. And for what reason is it prohibited? It is because its size causes it to be intermingled with other fish, and as a result, sultanit rises out of the water with non-kosher fish when it is caught. The sages taught, if a fish does not currently possess scales, but will grow them after a period of time, such as the sultanit and the afiyats fish, it is permitted. Likewise, if it has scales now, but will shed them when it is caught and rises from the sea, such as akunas, nafuna, katasvatiyas, and achsaftiyas, there we go, and otanas, it is permitted. So it seems like otanas is supposed to be the tuna fish. So Rabbi Abahu announced in Caesarea, fish entrails and their eggs may be purchased from any person, as the consumption with regard to them is that they come only from Pelusium, or Pilusa, in Spain, which is Aspamia. Okay, and non-kosher fish are not found in those areas. This is similar to that which Abaye says. These small fish, or zahanta, of Bav River are permitted, as non-kosher fish are not found in that river. The Gemara asks, what is the reason that Abaye unequivocally permitted eating these fish and was not concerned about the potential presence of non-kosher fish among them? If we say that it is due to the fact that the water flows rapidly, and these non-kosher fish, since they do not have a spinal cord, are not able to exist in a place where the water flows rapidly, as the current carries the non-kosher fish out of the Bav River, and consequently all the remaining fish are kosher, this is not the case, since we see that non-kosher fish exist in rivers with strong currents. Rather, perhaps Abaye permitted the fish because the water is salty and these non-kosher fish are not able to exist in a place of salty water since they do not have scales. This too is not the case since we see that non-kosher fish exist in salty water. Rather, Abaye permitted the small fish in the Bav River because the mud in that river is not suitable for non-kosher fish to reproduce. The conditions in the river render it unproductive habitat for non-kosher fish. So Ravina says nowadays, as the government built canals between the rivers, and the Goza River and the Gamda River spill into the Bav and carry non-kosher fish there, it is prohibited to eat the small fish without thorough inspection. Okay, the Gemara cites several other statements of the Amoraim that concern the halakhic status of fish. So Abaye says this creature known as the sea donkey, or Hamara the Yama, is permitted. The creature known as the sea ox, or the Torah, the Maya, is prohibited. And your mnemonic to remember this halakha is impure is pure and pure is impure. So that is the name of an animal which is non-kosher on land is kosher in the sea. And that which is kosher on land is non-kosher in the sea. So Rav Ashi said the type of fish known as shafar nuna is permitted, and the type of fish known as kadesh numa is prohibited. And your mnemonic to remember this halakha is that which is holy, or kodesh, is to the Lord and not for humans. And some say that Rav Ashi said the type of fish known as kafar numa, I can't say it, I'm putting an M in there. Kafar nuna is prohibited, and your mnemonic is the grave, or kever, is impure, like the graves of Gentiles. The Gemara relates several incidents involving sages and their rulings with regard to fish. So Rabbi Akiva happened to come to Ginzak, and they brought before him a certain fish that was similar to a hippusha, a non-kosher aquatic creature. When he enclosed it in a basket, he saw that it had scales, which it shed as it struggled to escape from the basket, and he permitted it on that basis. So Rav Ashi happened to come to Tamdoria, where they brought before him a certain fish that was similar to an eel. He took it out and held it against the light of the day and saw that there were thin scales on it, and he permitted it. So Rav Ashi also happened to come to a certain land where they brought before him a fish that was similar to a shafar nuna. There we go. He enclosed it in a white vessel and saw that it shed dark scales, which he could see against the white background of the container, and he permitted it. So Rabbi Bar Bachana happened to come to Akra Da'agma, and they brought him some zachanta, a dish prepared from small fish. He heard a certain man calling it bate, the name of a non-kosher sea creature, kind of like an eel, I guess. So Rabbi Bar Bachana said to himself, from the fact that he called it bate, I can conclude from here that there is a non-kosher substance in the zachanta, and he did not eat from it that night. In the morning he examined the dish, and in fact found a non-kosher substance in it. He read the following verse about himself. No sin shall befall the righteous. Proverbs 12:21. The Mishnah teaches, and a sliver of hiltit may not be consumed, although one may derive benefit from it. The Gemara asks, what is the reason that it is prohibited? It is because they slice it with a knife on which there is presumably non-kosher residue. And even though the master said that a prohibited substance that imparts flavor to the detriment of the mixture is permitted, that principle does not apply in this case because as a result of the sharpness of the hiltit, as a result of the sharpness of the hiltit, the act of slicing it with a knife sweetens, that is, enhances the taste of the non-kosher residue, and therefore it is like a prohibited substance that imparts flavor to the enhancement of a mixture, and it is prohibited. The Gemara relates that the Gentile slave of Rabbi Levi would sell hiltit and was permitted to purchase it from him as he was the slave of a sage. When Rabbi Levi passed away, they came before Rabbi Yochanan and said to him, now that Rabbi Levi has passed, what is the halacha with regard to whether or not it is permitted to purchase hiltit from his Gentile slave? So Rabbi Yochanan said to them, the slave of a chaver, so one devoted to the meticulous observance of mitzvot, especially halachot of ritual purity, teruma, and tithes, is a chaver himself, and therefore is permitted to buy a hiltit from him. So the slave is a chaver. Okay. The Gemara relates another incident involving the status of a chaver in his household. So Rav Huna bar min Yomi purchased sky blue dye, so Tehelta, from the people of the household, that is the wife of Rav Amra, the pious, the Hasid, right? One may purchase sky blue dye, or Tehelta, for ritual fringes only from a reliable individual, as it is easy to counterfeit it from like indigo. So Rav Huna then came before Rav Yosef to ask if he could rely on her assurance that it was usable for the mitzvah. The answer was not available to Rav Yosef. So later, Hanan the tailor happened to meet Rav Huna, and he said to him, "From where could poor Rav Yosef have known the answer to this question?" Hanan continued, "There was an incident in which I was involved as I purchased Tehelta from the people of the household," meaning the wife, of Rabben Rabbenaah, brother of Rabbi Chia bar Abba, and I came before Rav Matana to ask him the same question, and the answer was not available to him either. I then came before Rav Yehuda of Hagronia, who said to me, "You have fallen into my hand. That is, I am the only one who can answer your question." This is what Shmuel says: "The wife of a Chaver is herself considered like a Chaver, and you may therefore rely on her statement." The Gemara comments, we learn here that which the sages taught explicitly in a Braita, the wife of a Chaver is like a Chaver, the slave of a Chaver is like a Chaver. Furthermore, with regard to a Chaver that died, his wife and children and members of his household remain in their presumptive status until they are suspected of engaging in inappropriate deeds. And similarly, with regard to a courtyard in which they sell Tehelta, it remains in its presumptive status as a place in which kosher Tehelta is sold until it is disqualified due to unscrupulous behavior. Okay, the sages taught, Tanu Rabbanan, the wife of one who is not careful to keep the particulars of a certain halachot, so Am HaAretz, who later marries a Chaver, and likewise the daughter of an Am HaAretz who marries a Chaver, and likewise the slave of an Am HaAretz who is sold to a Chaver, must all accept upon themselves the commitment to observe the matters associated with Chaver status. So the wife of a Chaver, who later marries an Am HaAretz, and likewise the daughter of a Chaver who marries an Am HaAretz, and likewise the slave of a Chaver who was sold to an Am HaAretz, these people need not accept upon themselves the commitment to observe the matters associated with Chaver status, ab initio. So this is the statement of Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yehuda says they too must accept upon themselves the commitment to observe the matters associated with Chaver status ab initio. And similarly, Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar would illustrate this point and say, there was an incident involving a certain woman who married a Chaver and would tie for him phylacteries on his hand. And she later married a tax collector and would tie for him tax seals on his hand, which shows that her new husband had a great influence on her level of piety. Rav says, the substances represented by the acronym Het Beit Yod Tav are prohibited if they were deposited with a Gentile where they were sealed only with one seal. Those represented by the acronym Het Beit Pei Gimel are permitted if they were deposited with a Gentile where they were sealed with one seal. The Gemara elaborates. Milk, so halav, meat, basar, wine, yain, and sky blue dye, so techelet, are all prohibited when they are found with only one seal. So chiltit, so fish stew, moras, bread, so pot, and cheese, gavina, are all permitted when they are found with one seal. The Gemara explains why only one seal is necessary for bread. With regard to what need we be concerned in the case of bread? That one might have thought it requires two seals. If it is due to the concern for the Gentile exchanging the fresh bread of the Jew with his own bread that is less fresh, the difference between cool bread and warm bread is known, and the Jew will realize that there has been an exchange. Likewise, if there is a concern that a Gentile might exchange more valuable wheat bread of a Jew with his own less valuable barley bread, the Jew will also know about it in this case. And if it is due to the concern that a Gentile might exchange similar kinds of bread with each other, it can be assumed that since there is one seal, the Gentile will not trouble himself and forge another seal just to exchange bread of equal value. The Gemara asks, And according to the opinion of Rav, what is different about cheese that it requires only one seal, whereas milk requires two? If the reason is that a Gentile will not trouble himself and forge a different seal, as cheese is generally inexpensive and the small profit he might make is not worth such an effort, this reasoning should apply to milk also, as he will not trouble himself and forge a new seal in this case either. So Rav Kahana said, remove the term milk from Rav's statement and enter instead a piece of fish that has no sign of kashrut, meaning. The Gemara raised an objection. Rav could not have been teaching that a piece of fish with no signs of kashrut requires two seals, as fish is the same as meat, which is already included in the list of items that require two seals. The Gemara explains that there are two categories of meat, animal meat and fish meat, since one might have thought that they are subject to different halachot. So Rav therefore teaches that both require two seals. The Gemara cites a different set of lists than that represented by Rav and Shmuel. The Gemara cites a different set of lists than that represented by Rav. And Shmuel says the substances represented by the acronym Beit Yod Tav are prohibited when sealed with one seal. Those represented by the acronym Mem Het Gimel are permitted when sealed with one seal. The Gemara explains meat, so basar, wine, so yain, and sky blue dye, so techelet, are prohibited when sealed with a single seal. Fish stew, so morais, hiltit, and cheese, gavina, are permitted when sealed with a single seal. The Gemara comments, according to Shmuel, a piece of fish that has no sign of kashrut is the same as meat, and we do not say that there is a difference between two categories of meat. Consequently, he does not include in his list a piece of fish that has no sign of kashrut. The sages taught one may not purchase foods represented by the acronym Yod Mem, Het Gimel in Syria. Not even but from Jews. The Gemara elaborates, one may not purchase wine, so yain, nor fish stew, so morais, nor milk, chalav, nor salkon darit, which is malach salkon darit, nor hiltit, nor cheese, gavina, except when purchased from an expert with a reputation for knowing and upholding the halachot of kashrut. With regard to all of them, if one is a guest in the home of his host, they are permitted as a Jew is assumed to keep the halachot of kashrut in his own home. The Gemara adds, the Gemara adds, this supports the statement of Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi, as Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi says, if a homeowner sends someone a package of food to his home, the food is permitted. What is the reason? It is because a homeowner does not leave aside permitted foods and eat prohibited foods. And when he sends food to another, he sends it from that which he eats himself, even though one may not be allowed to purchase food from that individual. So the Mishnah teaches that salkon darit, salt, is prohibited. So malach salkon darit. The Gemara asks, what is the salkon darit salt, or the malach salkon darit? Rav Yehuda says that Shmuel says it is the salt that the Roman bakers salkon dare eat. The sages taught with regard to salkon darit, with regard to malach salkon darit, black salt is prohibited, whereas white salt is permitted. This is the statement of Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yehuda says, white salt is prohibited, black salt is permitted. The Gemara cites a third opinion. Rabbi Yehuda ben Gamliel says in the name of Rabbi Hanina ben Gamliel, this and that, meaning both white and black, are prohibited. So the Gemara cites an explanation of this dispute. So Rabbi Bar Chana says that Rabbi Yochanan says, according to the statement of one who says that white salkon darit salt is prohibited, it is suspected that the intestines of white non-kosher fish are mixed in with it. And this is the reason for the prohibition. According to the statement of the one who says that black salt is prohibited, it is suspected that the intestines of black non-kosher fish are mixed in with it. According to the statement of one who said this and that are prohibited, he is concerned that this and that are mixed in white and black salt, respectively. The Gemara mentions an additional problem with salkon darit salt. Rabbi Abahu says in the name of Rabbi Hanina ben Gamliel, there was a certain elder in our neighborhood who would smooth its surface with pig fat. The Mishnah further teaches that the list of items it mentioned are prohibited. The Gemara asks, since the Mishnah began by stating that the items it lists are prohibited for the consumption, what does this apparently redundant conclusion serve to exclude? The Gemara answers, according to the opinion of Hizkiah, cited on 38b, it serves to exclude cases where it is known that wine of Gentiles was added to the foods, as one may not even derive benefit from such foods. According to the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan, it serves to exclude fish stew and cheese of Beit Unyaki, as it is prohibited to derive benefit from these. And accordingly, the unattributed statement in this Mishnah is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Meir, cited in the previous Mishnah, 29b. Okay. So the Mishnah says, these are permitted for consumption, milk that was milked by a Gentile. And a Jew watched him doing it, watched him milking. And honey, and grape clusters, which, despite the fact that they are dripping juice, are not subject to the halachot of susceptibility to ritual impurity caused by contact with that liquid. In pickled vegetables whose usual manner of preparation does not involve adding wine and vinegar to them. In tarit fish that is not minced. In brine that has fish in it. In the leaf of a hiltit plant. In rolled olive cakes. Rabbi Yoshi says, overripe olives are prohibited. Locusts that come from a salesman's basket are prohibited, whereas those that come from the storeroom, so heftek, are permitted. And likewise with regard to the portion of the produce designated for the priest, or teruma, as will be explained in the Gemara. So the Gemara now says, we learn from the Mishnah that which the sages taught explicitly in the Braita. A Jew may sit beside a Gentile's flock and wait until the Gentile milks his animals and brings the milk to the Jew. And he need not be concerned, even if he cannot see the milking process from his seated position. The Gemara asks, what are the circumstances of this case? If it is known that there is no non-kosher animal in the Gentile's flock, isn't it obvious that the milk is permitted? Why would the Braita teach an obvious halacha? And if there is a non-kosher animal in his whole flock, then why is the milk permitted, considering the fact that the Jew could not see the Gentile from where he sat? The Gemara explains, actually, this is referring to a case where there is a non-kosher animal in the flock, and when the Jew is standing, he can see the Gentile, but when he is sitting, he cannot see the Gentile. Lest you say, since the Jew is sitting, he cannot see the Gentile, he should be concerned that perhaps the Gentile will bring non-kosher milk and mix it with kosher milk. The Braita therefore teaches us that since when the Jew is standing, he can see him, the Gentile was fearful of being caught and does not mix anything into the milk. The Mishnah teaches, and the honey of Gentiles is permitted. The Gemara explains, for what need we be concerned with regard to honey? If it is due to a concern that a Gentile might mix wine into it, honey spoils when it is mixed with wine, and therefore a Gentile would not do so. If it is due to the cooking of Gentiles, this too does not apply because it is eaten as it is, raw. If it is due to the concern that the honey might have absorbed prohibited taste from vessels of Gentiles that requires purging, this does not apply either, as it is a prohibited substance that imparts flavor to the detriment of the mixture. In such a case is permitted. So since none of these concerns are relevant, honey is permitted. The Mishnah further teaches, grape clusters, which despite the fact that they are dripping juice, are not subject to the halachot of susceptibility to ritual impurity caused by contact with that liquid. And the Gemara raises a contradiction from the following Braita with regard to one who harvests grapes in order to take them to the press and crush them. There's a dispute as to whether or not the liquid that seeps from the grapes renders them susceptible to ritual impurity. Shammai says it has become susceptible to ritual impurity. Hillel says it has not become susceptible, and eventually Hillel conceded to the opinion of Shammai. This shows that the juice that seeps out of grapes does render them susceptible to the ritual impurity, which apparently contradicts the ruling of the Mishnah. The Gemara explains, there, in the case of the Braita, he wants the juice as a beverage, and one's intention influences the capability of certain liquids to render substances susceptible to ritual impurity. Therefore, the liquid that seeps from the grapes renders them susceptible to ritual impurity. Here, in the case of the Mishnah, he does not want the juice as a beverage, and therefore the grapes are not rendered susceptible to impurity. The Mishnah further teaches, in tarit fish that is not minced and brine that has fish in it are permitted. So the sages taught what is considered tarit that has not been minced. Any fish whose head and spine are recognizable, and what is considered brine that has fish in it, any brine that has 1 kilbit or 2 kilbiot. and that floating in it, okay, from DOF 40. Okay, so that is the end of DOF 39. Thanks for watching.